Welcome to Trailblazers. Today I'm here with Tim from Titan Exchange. Tim, can you kind of start off by telling us what Titan Exchange is and kind of what you do there?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jack, for having me on the pod. So Titan is Solana's first MetaDex aggregator, and on top of that, we've also built our own aggregator algorithm that beats competitors on our platform around 80% of the time. So you can kind of think of a meta aggregator as an aggregator of aggregators. So when users actually come to Titan to trade, um, they get to see live stream quotes of all the different routers and algorithms on Solana, and we route you to the best price no matter what. So that's like Titan from a high level and what we've built. Um, myself, I call myself like the chief janitor of Titan, so handling like all things like growth, marketing, uh, BD, and also a little bit of the product.
Okay, very cool. So I've been kind of paying attention to like the Solana DeFi space for a long time, and I was really excited when I saw you guys because Jupiter's just been kind of dominating for a while, and nobody's really been able to like be a competitor or stuff like that. So I really want to hear like what made you guys think that you could kind of start like taking out some of the market share in this space, and what problems did you kind of see?
Yeah, for sure. I think like when we first started, there was like a lot of like skepticism just because of like how deep like a foothold like Jupiter has like on Solana. But that's like probably precisely why we actually decided to build Titan. So most of the tech team is coming from uh, the EVM side, like building like routing algorithms there. And I think especially like back then, it was like a bit more advanced in terms of like aggregation on the EVM side. And there's also like a lot more healthy competition. Like if you look there, there's obviously like 1inch, CowSwap, and a bunch of others that are like competing with each other there. And then we looked at Solana and it was like just Jupiter, right? They have that really strong monopoly there. And like credits to their team, I think they're one of the best teams, if not like the best team on Solana in terms of like execution on both the product and like distribution side. So, you know, they deserve like their like dominance there, but we had that crazy idea, hey, like let's take what we've learned on the EVM side building algorithms here. Let's try to build like an algorithm that can compete with Jupiter. And then, we built like a proof of concept around a year ago. The initial results were really good. It was like outperforming around 80% of the time with like significant like basis point improvement. And then, we saw that as like an opportunity to actually target and appeal to an audience of like pro traders on Solana that actually care about these like incremental like basis point improvements because, 5 to 10 bips on a trade for like a pro trader is a big deal because that compounded over 100 trades, over 1,000 trades is like a significant impact on your P&L.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Like talking about your algorithm and kind of what you learned from the EVM, how is it unique, I guess, and what kind of things do you learn from routing in the EVM that you kind of took over to Solana?
Yeah, so I think like most uh, aggregators right now are using like just to like not get super technical, but like they're using classical pathfinding approaches. So that's like basically trying to find your like shortest route, shortest path to like solve this like routing problem. And I think that works because it's well, number one, it's like very battle tested, and it's simple to implement and test. But there's like certain limitations with that kind of approach. Number one, like those algorithms don't take into consideration like price impacts. So you have to exclude like a lot of like pools, for example, in your set. And then number two, like when you're splitting like a trade into hops, like those kind of algorithms have to uh, split those hops into like larger 5-10% buckets, for example. So you can think of like when you're doing a trade that's like $1,000 notional, that gets split into, for example, like 5% here, 15% there, like 40% there. So those are the limitations of those classical pathfinding algorithms that most aggregators are using. So what we've done is we're using convex optimization. We've built our own kind of unique routing algorithm from ground up to address some of those limitations. So our algorithm is able to take into account like price impacts when trading, and that means we can include more pools. We're also able to go to basis point precision, so we can split that same $1,000 notional trade into hops that go, for example, like 6.67% here, 15.83% there, et cetera, et cetera. And that's like really what is able to enable us to kind of find like the true optimal on-chain price through like all these different liquidity sources on Solana.
Okay, so you're kind of taking into account more information like depth and other things that like kind of would improve that execution. That I see that. So you guys are both an aggregator and a meta aggregator, and I see them kind of as two different like business models where the aggregators kind of competing on execution, where like the meta aggregators kind of competing on like um, people showing up to the website and using the website. So kind of how do you guys think about kind of distribution and kind of getting people to get on your website and use your aggregator?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I think like there's like a, I guess like imperfect analogy or like parallel with like TradFi here, where like you can think of the meta aggregator level as kind of like your brokerage in TradFi. So that's like your Robinhood. So like I totally agree with you. It is like two separate businesses. Um, so that's why like distribution attention is extremely important for anybody trying to build like a meta aggregator, because you're essentially building a brokerage. You have like the closest relationship with like the front end user. So yeah, and then the aggregator level, you can kind of think of that as like the exchange level. So that's like your NYSE, that's your NASDAQ. That's where a lot of like the price discovery happens. As a meta aggregator, our job is just to route you to whoever like of these exchanges provides the best price. So like that's kind of how we think of like things like from like a market structure point of view. And then obviously you have like your dexes, which are essentially like your market makers. Now there's like a lot more of these like different like I guess like prop AMM style like market makers that are appearing on Solana, but like at the fundamental like just like top down, it's like okay, brokerage, exchange, market makers, and that's like where we kind of see meta aggregator, aggregator, and then I guess dexes, market makers, AMMs, whatever.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so what are you guys thinking about like distribution? Like how are you guys like planning your marketing growth stuff? I guess you're directly working on that.
Yeah,
So what are you guys thinking about that?
yeah. I think for us, like we're taking a very targeted approach to things. So like we're still in private beta right now. You know, we're very much focused on uh, targeting like certain like I guess uh, key I guess traders in like every region. I don't want to like spill like everything that we've done so far, but like there's certain things that have worked for us, like definitely being very targeted and identifying like kind of like key people in like different regions who are, for example, like in trading cabals that would be interested in like using our product, and then really trying to like show them the value of our product, and then have them kind of spread the word for us. Like I think that's kind of like worked for us in this initial phase. As we look towards like this wider rollout, we have some other things like we're planning to do, because yeah, obviously the game kind of changes like when you're like in private beta versus like actual like a public product that like everybody can use.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, that makes sense. Like in DeFi, it's like the whales make up all the volume anyways. If you can get the top like 50 guys, you might as well have had like half the chain.
Yeah,
Something
for
depending on
sure,
the chain.
exactly. Yeah, I think
Um,
like definitely like word of mouth has been like good too. Like I think it's just like at the end of the day, it's just like shipping a good product. So like if the product works, if people are actually like experiencing like outperformance using Titan, they're gonna tell their friends, they're gonna tell other people. So that has definitely been like a major catalyst for like a lot of the growth we've seen over like the past couple months since we launched private beta.
yeah, makes sense. So it seems to me that like other teams have kind of come to the same intuition that you guys have, that like there's definitely not as much competition for routing on Solana as there could be. And like I've seen OKX started a router recently. Ranger just started a meta aggregator recently, and those are just two of like a longer list of people who are kind of entering the space. Like what do you think? I guess you already explained a little bit about your intuition, but how do you see this landscape kind of going forward a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like yeah, just like more competition is always like good for the end user at the end of the day. I think it's like Solana has definitely uh, I wouldn't say like completely won, but like they're definitely like far in the lead in terms of like actual on-chain activity, especially compared with like Ethereum. So it's like pretty telling that like all these sexes, like you said, like OKX, also like Bybit is now coming on chain on Solana with ByReal. So like like all these kind of new players coming in is just because there's like a lot of on-chain activity on Solana. So it's just like telling of like where the actual like retail flow is. Um, yeah, I mean, like we view it as like competition is obviously like good for the user. It's just good for growing like the pie of Solana in general. So um, yeah, it's very interesting to see though. I think like a lot of stuff has happened over the past 6 months. A lot of stuff with like prop AMMs, which have taken like a lot of volume on chain. There's obviously like like the sex is coming on chain on Solana. There's also like you said, like new aggregators slash meta aggregators, new AMMs with like pump swap competing with the incumbents there. So pretty exciting times on Solana.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you guys rolled out with like an invite only beta. I guess for me, it makes a lot of sense with protocols that have like TVL to defend, and if they get a smart contract bug or something, then like the users could be like shit out of luck with the money that they have. Why did you guys decide to do this sort of rollout the way you did?
I just think like when we go public, we want everything to work like really well. Like we just don't want anything to break. So going private beta first is like a way for us to kind of like stress test everything. Just make sure infra everything is like sound. Because obviously like if things do break or if people have like a subpar experience right now, we're still like under private beta. We can still like patch those things up. It was just like we were ready to ship out, but we weren't really like this is not probably ready for like public launch. So like it made sense to go private first. Um, yeah, I mean that's really it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just getting some use, seeing how it works. So you guys have right now, you guys have no fees on the router or the meta a router, if I'm correct. What are you like? How are you thinking of changing that in the future, and how are you guys kind of thinking about revenue? I guess going out, or what are you thinking?
Right. Yeah, we're not charging any fees right now when you're just doing like a swap through Titan. I think we do want to keep it that way. Like going back to the parallel with like TradFi, like if you look at like Robinhood when they came onto the scene, they kind of drove like commissions to zero, like in equities, like at the brokerage level. So like we do see that and I think like they're making a lot of money with like stuff like payment for order flow. I think like Solana is like not quite there yet in terms of like match like how mature like the market structure is, but we do see like there's an opportunity for like stuff like that in the future, and we're actively exploring that as well. And then I think like other ways we can make fees like differentiated order types, which will have like limit orders, DCA. I think there's certainly like an appetite for users to pay some sort of spread for like those special order types. So there's like some other ways that we are thinking of like monetization beyond just like charging people like a flat fee or whatever on the actual like market swap product, which we're going to try to keep that like zero.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Um, so where do you guys kind of see like a competitive moat go? Like your competitive moat, is it kind of in your algorithm and your distribution? Like where are you thinking you can kind of defend ground on like what you have, given that it's going to be a very competitive environment?
For sure. I think like at least today, like we certainly have like a moat around the algorithm. Like we're pretty confident that our algorithm will be able to deliver like a better price. At least for like let's just throw out like a year or something, right? Just because like it would be difficult for someone to replicate what we have and build that up from like ground up. So we're pretty confident in that moat. And while we do have that advantage, we want to try to drive in as much like I guess growth and like market share as we can. Um, I do think like in the future though, like longer term, yeah, those moats will be different. Like it is possible that aggregation just kind of gets commoditized. Like becomes like kind of like a race to zero for everybody. So really trying to build a moat around stuff like distribution and other things like on the product side in terms of like just like a different UX that you can offer will become, I think, really really important in the long term.
Okay, yeah, totally makes sense. Especially all these verticals are colliding. Yeah, it makes sense that it's like shifting over time. Um, so say we're like a year from now, what kind of metrics and stuff would you and the team be looking at to say that like we're doing really well? Like what KPIs are you guys kind of paying attention to? I guess right now you're in beta, so
Yeah,
it's a little different, but
yeah, yeah. We keep track of like a lot of metrics right now. Yeah, it just comes back to like volume, right, and like market share. So certainly, like looking at like just volume growth through the UI, and also we'll have like an API product as well. So we'll be, looking at certain metrics with like integration partners as well, just to see like how well our algo is like competing against others on, for example, like wallets, right? Like, so there's a lot of like those metrics, but at the end of the day, it's just really like about the volume like that we're able to drive. And yeah, I mean, we'll be keeping a close eye on that, looking at how we can grow volume and just grow like market share amongst like all these like different swap aggregators on Solana.
makes sense. So what do you think are some of the some lessons like you and the team have learned so far working on Titan, or something you might have not expected kind of going into this?
I think so. One good thing about our team is like most of the tech team's been around like together for a while, so like it was like pretty much um like a good seamless fit. Like we all like work together like quite well. And just because like I like we're like a lot of people are like surprised like, oh, how fast we moved, like how did you guys hire and stuff. But the team has all kind of like come together from like previously like we're like most of the team was working at like the same equities hedge fund, and then they were doing the solver stuff as well together. So that's like something that I think like a lot of people are surprised about for our team. So we never had like any, I guess, like issues or lessons learned there. I think like just generally, it's just for us, it's just like from previous startup experiences and from working together previously, like just ship things, like just build it and then ship it. Like so, for example, like with our private beta, yeah, we could have waited to maybe perfect things a bit more before launching, but we wanted to just get that out there. Like as long as like things are like steady and like um, working, we don't have to like nitpick over like all these different things on the UI or whatever. Just ship things as fast as you can. So I'd say like that's probably like an important lesson, not just like in crypto, but just like for anybody building any kind of startup. Like I think for like a lot of people it's like hard to get over that because you want to be like a perfectionist and you just want to like make sure everything's perfect before you ship it. But I would say just like push things out, like just try things, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I've learned a very similar lesson doing stuff with crypto. Just get it out there, get some eyeballs
Yeah,
on it, and people are kind of happy to see you working on something and give you feedback.
exactly. And then ship and then put the private beta thing on top. And if things break, then it's still private beta. So
Yeah. So, what things are you guys kind of looking forward in the team, or what are you guys kind of excited about that's coming up?
yeah, there's like a couple of big things that like the team's working on right now. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. Like we're gonna have like an API. So it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people are like asking us like when API, even more than like when token, which is like probably a good sign.
That's good.
Um, yeah. So API definitely in the works. Will be important to also like onboard all these like future integration partners. Other things like you know um, we are we have like a rebrand like kind of ready to go, so that will be manifested in like a reskinned like landing page and like app as well. And then at the same time we have this like v2 of the app that we're working on in parallel. So that will be yeah, the reskinned app plus a couple other like cool features. So I think those are like the kind of main things that we have that we're excited to show everybody. And then obviously like it's private beta now, but it won't be private beta forever. definitely like looking ahead at like a wider like release and like public launch.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Um, Kind of zooming out a little bit from just specifically talking about Titan. How did you kind of get involved in crypto, and like what was the moment where you kind of decided that this is something you wanted to do full time?
I come from like originally like a TradFi background. Like I like went to business school. Yeah, like after graduating, like I was like working in finance for like a couple of years. Like did like that kind of like boring route. Got like my CFA and stuff, and then it was like I got into crypto like right before COVID. It was like the tail end of like the ICO, I guess boom or whatever, and then yeah, I was like traveling. I met some people. Obviously, like the monetary aspect like kind of drew me in just because like oh, it's like you meet some people that have like made so much money so quick and they're like really young and it's like oh how can I get in there? And then like as I like kind of dove in, uh, I started really liking the space. It's just like I like how like things are also like very merit based in crypto. Like you kind of be like anybody. You can kind of just be like an anon PFP. Like a lot of these things that matter in like TradFi or whatever, like in the traditional world, like don't matter so much in crypto. It's like if you're like everything is like kind of judged on merit. I think I fell in love with that aspect, and then just like the fact that I think like that one aha moment was always like just like stable coin transfers still like at the end of the day like it was like I started like getting paid in like stable coins like back then it was like this is like so much better than you know like receiving like a payroll like from a bank or like just like sending money to other people is just like so much more convenient than like other ways. Like I come from Canada where like if you actually want to send like a wire transfer to somebody, you actually have to go to the bank like physically, which is just like a terrible experience. And I just don't know why it's like that still to this day. But yeah, like crypto completely blows all those things like out of the water.
Yeah, totally. So I think maybe you were talking about it in your last response, but like what things about the industry kind of have you excited for the future, like other than maybe necessarily what you're working?
Yeah, definitely interested in like on-chain equities, like these kind of things like happening, especially on Solana. I think that will be very interesting to see how that actually plays out. Um, yeah, like watching closely like regulations and all those kind of things. There's like a lot of hype around like stable coins right now, which I think are like going to be big, and especially like perp dexes with like hyperliquid right now. So like watching those things very carefully, very much so. Like the whole team is like super like Solana aligned, so we do believe in like the future of Solana. So it'll be interesting to see like how, and I think like the foundation also is looking at stuff like hyperliquid and saying okay yeah we there is like tremendous value in like having like an actual like high performance clob like on the L1 itself. So we're very interested to see like how things play out there. It seems like they're trying to maneuver towards like making that a possibility with stuff like MCP like priority cancels. So yeah, there's like a bunch of things that the team's like watching very closely. Also, like these prop AMMs, like I talked about that like a little bit earlier. Those are some of the interesting things that we're watching, and I think there's going to be a lot more like prop AMMs on Solana. I think it's going to be like much more competitive.
Yeah, and those prop AMMs are like SolFi, Orbic, and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So SolFi, ZeroFi, Obrick, I think they were like the original three that have been driving a lot of the volume, and there are others. Yeah, there are others that are coming.
Okay, well, I think this is a great way to wrap things up. Thank you for taking the time to come on and tell us about what you're working on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, Jack.